Baghdad's morning was slowly breaking. The harsh desert wind shook the small bells hanging from the city's minarets. Dust, gathered at the edge of the marketplace, danced in the sun's first rays. The blacksmith's hammer sounded from afar like a thin-throated bird's song, and glass-like sparkles flickered on the waters of the Tigris. The city's heart was beating a little differently that day, because all roads, all eyes, all whispers were flowing toward the palace's golden gates. They said a physician from the distant lands of India was coming, a man whose name was on everyone's lips, who had knowledge as vast as the sea, who knew the map of the human body by heart, who could sense the root of illness with a single glance. His arrival had spread not like news, but like fate's own writing. Today knowledge would take the stage. Today words would measure strength. In the palace courtyard, palm trees cast shadows. The pool's waters looked like a clear mirror. Every line of the blue sky appeared there. Around it, soldiers polishing swords, scribes preparing writing boards, servants standing silently at the gate. All were breathing in the atmosphere of this day. Caliph Mansur sat on his throne. The throne was carved from wood, its edges gilded, with a finely patterned silk cushion in the middle. On his face was a strange expectation, a light tension at the corner of his right eye, as if an invisible thread was pulling toward the gate at any moment. He was waiting, but for whom? Very few people knew. He knew that the truth of great words shines only before one witness, and that witness was Ja'far ibn Muhammad, Imam Sadiq, who descended into the heart of knowledge, who heard the spirit of words. Then, through the palace's large doors, a caravan appeared in gilded robes. The Indian physician had hidden the dust of his long journey with perfumed oils. His hair was combed back, his gaze straight, his steps measured. The books he carried rivaled the sun with their golden edges. It was as if each page embraced the voice of thousands of years. When he entered, the scribes sharpened their pen tips even more. Servants bowed deeply with respect. Some of the nobles whispered, "Here, he's come." The physician advanced to the center of the palace, clasped his hands at his chest, and stood before the Caliph. His voice was deep, not choppy, but like a flowing river, a confident voice, one that had come to teach. "O Caliph," he said, "I set out from distant lands to bring the light of knowledge to your soil as well. In our texts, the body is the playground of four natures: hot, cold, dry, wet. When these four fall out of balance, illness is born. The physician's job is this: restore the order of the natures." As he spoke, he opened his books, explained Sanskrit lines with Arabic words, called out names 1,000 years old, compounds from plants, measurements from drinks, secrets from body parts. The nobles nodded in agreement. Scribes arranged sentences like golden threads and copied them onto paper. The physician's fingers danced in the air with each sentence. His thoughts seemed to be drawn into the room, like invisible lines. But the Caliph's gaze occasionally turned to the door. An invisible clock ticked in his heart. Let him come, let him come, let the truth of words become clear. Finally, in the distance, at the end of the corridor, the rhythm of light footsteps was heard. The door opened again, this time as if filled with light. A figure appeared in simple, clean clothing. Ja'far ibn Muhammad. His arrival was quiet, but it was as if everything in the room gently shifted its place. Voices turned to whispers, breathing found rhythm, gazes softened. He gave greetings. Everyone stood up whether they wanted to or not. Respect was born not by force, but willingly. The Imam sat aside, in a simple place. The physician looked at him. In his gaze was both interest and confidence in his own power, and also an incomprehensible, deep feeling of attraction. The Indian physician continued his words, wove knowledge skillfully, gave examples, read some sections aloud to the Caliph, even described the smell of ointments to be impressive. When he finished, a silent joy circulated in the room for a moment, as if everyone was saying, "Truly, this is great knowledge." The physician closed his book and turned to the Imam. "I would like to add to what you have, if you wish." The Imam smiled, neither ironic nor sad, but a purely calm smile. "No," he said, "because what I have is better than what you have." The ruler's eyebrows rose slightly. The nobles looked at each other, and the physician asked proudly, "What is it that you have?" "I treat heat with cold, cold with heat, dryness with moisture, moisture with dryness, and I leave the result to God's will. The prophet said, the stomach is the home of illnesses, and diet is the head of all medicines. Give the body what it's used to. The physician pursed his lips slightly. His voice had the dust of great libraries. But isn't this just medicine? After all, medicine has grown in books. Do you think I learned medicine from books? The Imam said without his voice trembling. Yes, said the physician. Texts are what make knowledge. No, said the Imam. I swear by God, I learned medicine only from God. The air in the room didn't get heavy. On the contrary, it seemed to clear. The purity of the word jumped into silence. The Caliph had been waiting for this moment. In his gaze was a light that said, now. The physician straightened his shoulders proudly. Then tell me, who is more knowledgeable, you or me? Let's ask questions, said the Imam. Let the answers decide. The sound of pens in the room stopped. Breath was divided, as if everyone took their place in internal silence. The Imam slowly raised a curtain, as it were. Why does a person have so many bones in their head? The Indian fell silent, raised his eyes upward, as if lines were flying there. I don't know. Why is hair on top of the head? I don't know. Why is the forehead hairless? I don't know. Why are eyebrows above the eyes? I don't know. Why is the nose between the two eyes? I don't know. Why do nostrils face downward? I don't know. Why are molars wide and canine teeth sharp? I don't know. Why do men have beards? I don't know. Why are palms hairless? I don't know. Why don't hair and nails feel pain? I don't know. Why does the heart resemble a pine cone? I don't know. Why are lungs in two parts? I don't know. Why do knees bend backward? I don't know. Why is the bottom of the foot curved inward? I don't know. The word was the same, but with each I don't know, something was being torn inside the physician. A board from the bookshelves, a volume, a memory. He was intelligent, very intelligent, but each of these questions touched not the text, but the reason for order. The palace people felt sorry for the physician for a moment, because it became clear. Texts are like the sea, but when you ask behind the wind why the water flows, the answer is hidden in the heart. But I know, said the Imam. Eyes lit up in the room. The Imam's voice came not like a teacher's voice, but like existence's own explanation. The reason the head has many bones is to protect the brain from blows. If it were a single bone, it would crack at the slightest blow. But when there are many, the blow is divided. Hair is on top of the head so that oil from the root regulates heat toward the brain, balances hot and cold, and vapors exit from the tip of the hair. The forehead is hairless, so that light can reach the eyes without obstacle. Eyebrows are shadows placed over the eyes, so that the right amount of light enters. The nose, standing between two eyes, is a center to divide light equally. The holes facing downward are for removing diseases and moisture filtered from the brain, for receiving smells. Otherwise, neither would the path of disease be open, nor would smell be recognized. As for teeth, he continued, front teeth were created for cutting, molars for grinding, canines for tearing. Food is both torn and ground in the mouth so that work is easy for the stomach. Men's beards are their covering and mark of difference. This difference is the language of order so that genders recognize each other, so that society finds its face and stands. Palms are hairless, so that touch is felt with delicacy. If they were hairy, the finger's sensation would be dulled. Hair and nails don't feel pain, because in them there is no door of the spirit connected to pain. They need to be shortened. If it turned into pain, humans would avoid cleaning themselves. The heart resembles a pine cone. Its top is narrow, its body wide. This form keeps it hanging in the lap of the lungs, so that with each breath, it moves and regulates the body's heat, so that the brain's delicate balance isn't damaged by this heat. The lungs are divided into two parts, so that the heart stands between them, moves and finds rhythm with stillness and movement. The liver is convex, so that it supports the stomach, helps with breathing, flows the body's fluids smoothly. The backward bending of knees is for moving the body forward. When taking a step, the path of movement opens, and the inward curve of the bottom of the foot is for embracing the ground, so that the human stance is stable, so they don't slip on their path. With each sentence, the Imam seemed to open invisible doors. His words connected from the body to the language of order, from order to the mind of the universe. As the physician listened, the hard stone inside his pride was softening. With each answer, his eyes touched the edge of a new sky. It was as if for the first time, he was sensing the breath behind the text. In each why question, he was falling into the depth of the answer. It is so, because if it weren't so, order would be broken. The Caliph lightly gripped the edge of the table. In his trembling fingers was the state of a man trying to hide the joy of the truth he was seeing. The physician said in a low voice, "I spent my life collecting words. Now I understand that words have a beginning, intention, a middle, wisdom, an end, submission. I haven't seen the end." The Imam lowered his head. His voice was as soft as wind touching water. Knowledge is God's light. That light descends to the purity of the heart. Books are windows for catching that light. But a window is not the sun. The palace had no wall clock, but time seemed to have stopped. Everyone in the room thought for a moment about their own life, which words they'd gotten stuck on, which truths they hadn't seen, with what arrogance they'd made their breath heavy. The scribes kept their pens on the paper. No lines went, because before lines, breath was needed. Servants lowered their eyes to the ground. Nobles wiped the ash from their chests. The Caliph took a deep breath, as if he put down the load hidden behind the throne. The Indian physician didn't kneel, but his spirit bent over collapsed arrogance. He said, "In the lands of India, I taught people the measure of wet and dry, heat and cold. Today I understood that measurements depend on the measurer. You showed the measure." The Imam smiled. In that smile there was no victory, there was heart's peace. He hadn't proven himself, he had only raised the curtain. The physician nodded and added, "I was ashamed to say I don't know. Now I understand that I don't know is the door of knowledge. It's more right to approach what I don't know with God's name." When the palace people heard this word, it was as if the heavy stones inside them crumbled. Because inside everyone is an "I don't know," and saying it takes courage. The Caliph didn't stand up, but spiritually he stood up. His gaze deepened. With quiet gratitude, he leaned toward the Imam. Today Baghdad's air has changed. As everyone slowly dispersed, the physician approached the Imam and said quietly, "I have many books, but there was an emptiness in my heart. You filled that emptiness with light. When I return to distant lands, I'll tell my students, behind the text is the breath of intention. I'll teach them that finding the answer to why there are many bones in a person's head is not only anatomy, but seeing the wisdom of order." The Imam nodded. A human is a book themselves. Each organ is a verse, each movement a line. To read a verse, you need eyes. To understand a line, you need a heart. When the physician left the palace courtyard, Baghdad's wind blew cooler, as if the desert's thirsty tongue had drunk water. He stopped for a moment, looked at the palm tree's shadow, watched the sun on the water's surface. He thought, "I learned to see, but I understood looking only now." The fatigue from the long journey fell from his shoulders. In its place came a light joy, a joy that lifts a person, not their ego. The news of this day spread in Baghdad as fast as lightning. A physician came, a scholar spoke, a truth came out from behind the curtain. At the edge of the marketplace, vendors told this story to buyers. Water carriers spread it in whispers through streets and alleys. Poets turned it into verses beside evening fires. But most of all, most deeply, the palace itself remembered it. Marble stairs, columns, the ceiling's golden patterns, all seemed to carve that voice into memory. Knowledge is God's light. Years will pass. The physician will return to his country. One day he'll stand before his students and say, "I'm teaching you not only the measure of mixtures, but the measure of questions. Ask why, because in the answer, along with the body, The order of the universe appears. Why is hair on top? This isn't only physics, it's also wisdom. Why is the forehead hairless? This isn't only aesthetic, it's also the path of light. Why don't nails feel pain? This isn't only comfort, it's also the mercy given to human self-regulation. His eyes will sometimes drift to the distance, as if you'll see again that simply clothed man in Baghdad's palace. Each time that memory comes, the same sentence will whisper in his heart. A book is a window, not the sun. And each time the story is told, it's as if time will weave itself again. Dust from the Indian journey at one end, Baghdad's humid wind at the other. In the middle, the weight of one sentence, but I know. This sentence isn't for pride, it's for emptying pride's insides. Again and again, to show a person their place. You are a servant growing in the lap of not knowing. Everyone who hears this story will start listening to their body when they lie in bed at night. They'll remember their head's bones, the hot cold vapors exiting from their hair tips, the shadow their eyebrows give, the path their nostrils keep open downward, the duty divided in their teeth's different shapes, the delicate touch hidden in their palms' hairlessness, the mercy in hair and nails. Painlessness. How their heart hangs like a pine cone giving rhythm. The breath moving in the lungs' two wings, the movement in their knees backward bending, the standing strength in their foot's inward curve. At that moment, they'll understand. The body isn't just matter. Every reason of the body is divine order's signature. When morning opens, that person will look at their food, remember their diet, understand that the stomach is home, won't exceed the measure. Because now they know, health comes not only with medicine, but first with restraint, with piety, with measure. The sentence, give the body what it's used to, will become the salt of their bread. Not exceeding limits will turn into a new joy, because on the other side of limits, order breaks. In Baghdad, the palace is still there. The sound of that day remains in the columns. That day's sun still trembles in the pool waters. No matter how much the Caliph's throne changes, the gratitude inside that moment doesn't change. Each new day, young scribes passing by stop for a moment, as if learning from an invisible teacher. Words aren't only written, words also live. And now, at this point in the story, you close your eyes for a moment. Imagine that Baghdad morning. The door opens again. Hot wind fills inside. From afar, an Indian in gilded clothes approaches. In his hand, a golden-edged book. On his face, familiar pride. He steps toward the palace center. Scribes hold their pens ready. Servants are silent. Nobles gather their gazes. The Caliph sits on the throne looking carefully at the door. He knows, in a moment it will fill with light. In a moment, words will find their place. The Indian physician starts to speak, his voice again steady, again confident, again full of books. And you already know that the story starts again, because truth gives the same question each time, reminds order with the same answer each time. The door opens, the sound of footsteps approaches. In the gathering, everyone stands up whether they want to or not. Greetings sound, silence descends, breath unites. The story returns to its first sentence, and the circle completes, so that the next listener also finds the courage to say, I don't know, in their heart, and opens the window of light.